Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on the Balls from Ellwood show, and with me today is someone I've been wanting to chat with for a very long time. He's a writer, he's a visual effects artist, and the director of some of my personal favorite flicks like Z, Superhost, and many, many more. And we just saw his latest film, Night of the Reaper, that's now streaming on Shudder, and I have to say it's a fun watch. We really, really loved it. Want to give it up today for Brandon Christensen. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. I just wanted, before we get into some of your films here, I just wanted to actually get to know you a little bit. Where did you grow up? What kind of kid were you growing up?
What kind of kid was I? I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask, but I was, I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, so I'm a Canadian, and I don't know, I was like, a very sporty kid, played baseball, basketball, played football in high school and stuff, but I was like a gamer as well when I grew up, but it was like I'd just constantly be getting into light trouble, nothing too serious or anything like that. And then, yeah, when I got to high school, I just started, um, started getting into filmmaking and stuff like that, and like trying to take it seriously without actually doing anything. But I was just kind of like building the dream, and then, kind of pursued it after high school and went to film school, and then just sort of a long, career building thing until about a decade ago, I made my first film.
So you always aspired, even from an early age, to be a filmmaker and an effects artist. I mean, was your parents supportive of this?
Yeah, no, yeah, they were great. I mean, in '93 we got our first family camcorder, and so like me and I've got three siblings, we would just constantly shoot like little skits and little short films and stuff like that, just like really dumb stuff, superhero things, little horror things, and yeah, we were just, it was like a great creative outlet for us, and I was the only real one that took it kind of seriously as I got older. But yeah, we just kind of grew up in a house that was very creative and just always kind of just, we didn't have the internet back then. So it was just, what can you do? And yeah, my parents were super supportive. They still are. They listen to everything. They watch everything a million times. It's pretty cool.
So you're obviously a horror fan, and it sounds like you were from an early age. When did your love of horror start? And when was your, I like to call it the chasing the dragon moment, the moment where you've
Sure.
seen a film and like you become obsessed from that point on and you got to seek everything out? Like, what was that moment for you?
Yeah, it was I mean, I was 6 when the Stephen King It miniseries came out, and for some reason I was allowed to watch it. And so that was a big thing that just like haunted me forever. Like I saw that, I was way too young. I was just perennial nightmares all the time because of that film. And when I got older, I saw it again when I was in junior high, and it was like, the my lifelong fear of this movie was just like instantly shut off because for the first time I watched it again, and I was just like, oh, like you could see the seams, you could see the bad sets, you could see kind of the cracks in what this when I was 6, I didn't really see. And so from that point on, it was like, okay, well, what's going to do that again? And so like me and my friends, we'd always just go to Blockbuster and be like, what's the scariest movie you have? And they would give you something and you take it home, and it would be debatable whether or not that was actually scary. But you just sort of, like you said, you're chasing the dragon. You're just trying to find that next fix of just like what's going to actually make me scared. And then when I was in college, like I got kind of into the extreme stuff, like August Underground and like murder set pieces and things like that. And you're just kind of like pushing the envelope a little bit. And then, I got a little bit older, and I was like, I'm done with that. I can go back. I can go back down to regular stuff. But yeah, it's just kind of been like part of my life since I was a little kid, and it's just like something that I continue today.
Do you still have the ability to be scared? Have you seen something recently that actually scares you? Or are you so desensitized? Because I know sometimes horror fans at the point
Sure.
you get desensitized where nothing scares them anymore. Is there something that still scares you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely a sucker for scares. What did I just saw Weapons in theaters, and there's
Oh, I
the
love
first half
weapons.
of that. Yeah, it's great. But the first half of it has so much tension and everything. And as you kind of reveal Gladys, some of that the scare goes away because it's, you've seen behind the curtain. But that first half, just like some of those sequences, like the when Julia Garner's sleeping in her car, like I was like, I couldn't breathe. I was just like, oh my God, like watching this person walk up to the window and stuff. Like that's one of the most effective things I've seen in a long time in horror. And I was just like, heart racing. I was like, is she gonna die? Like what, you know? And so, no, it totally gets me. And I'm glad it does because, I think once you get too desensitized, it kind of ruins it for you, Like you miss that feeling. And I love that.
Is there something from childhood, like a scene or a certain movie that still, gets you to this day?
Um, I mean, it was such a long one. Like that was like 8 years of my life that I was just, constantly tormented by Tim Curry. But it was like the one scene that stood out so much was just the blood bubble in the bathroom when Beverly goes in, explodes, and the dad can't see the blood. Like that was such an iconic moment because every time I'd go to the bathroom from that point forward, you're just like, do I hear something in the drain? Is something gonna blow up and like no one else can see it and I'm gonna look crazy? That was definitely probably like the most haunted I've ever been, and that one image in particular was like the main thing. But again, once I saw it again, it just kind of all dissipated immediately. And so, when they did it chapter one, I was really hoping that they would get me again. I was actually terrified going into it. I was like, oh my God, the trailers were so good. I love the book, I love the movie. And it was good, but it wasn't that scary, and that was kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same feeling. I mean,
Yeah,
I still enjoy them, but I still think
yeah,
the original TV one is the best as well.
yeah,
Well,
for sure.
let's talk a little bit about your inspiration when you're crafting ideas for your films. One thing that I really enjoy about you and your work, one thing I think that makes you stand out from other directors is you always seem to constantly come up with these like kind of fresh and original concepts. Where can I ask you that these ideas come from?
I mean, a lot of it's just from life, like stillborn. I had a newborn in the house when I was doing that, and then when my first son went to kindergarten the first time, we kind of just like let go of his hand, and he goes and he's gone all day, all week. Z kind of was born from that because we're like, what if something came home with him and we didn't know what to do, and it's like that kind of disconnect between your kid because for the first time you're not with him anymore. And then Superhost was like I was at an Airbnb in Toronto for a film festival, and I had a problem with the toilet and it wouldn't flush, and so I had to call the Superhost guy that was running it, and he had to come in with a plunger and he was like fixing the toilet because it was clogged. And that was just like, oh, like that's an interesting kind of story beat, and so Superhost was born from that. Puppet Man was something that we were brought, that we brought a concept, and so me and my brother developed that. But then with Night of the Reaper, I always wanted to do a babysitter horror because, like, I'm kind of fortunate to be able to make movies at all. But when you're doing it, you're like, what, I don't want to just do the same thing over and over again because Stillborn and Z were very similar to each other. It's like mom and terror, grief, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Superhost was like a jump out from that, and it was like, okay, I can do comedy now. And now I'm kind of just like looking at different subgenres. Like I have a found footage film coming out next year,
Ooh.
and that's going to be a totally different thing too. But it's starting like its festival run next week. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of like it's usually just like a little kernel of an idea, like babysitter, and then you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And then you talk to, my brother and I talked, and we were trying to figure out how can we do something familiar but different, and so that's where kind of you spin off of it, and so it's always just usually something from my life that I'm just taking, like and it just sort of slowly grows. So like we're writing other stuff right now that it's just like the smallest kernel of an idea, and it just keeps growing and growing, and like you keep volleying it back and forth until you've got like ideally a full kind of movie idea.
Well, that actually leads me to my next question. Whenever you're sitting down to write a script, like from conception to the very end,
Hmm.
like how long does that on average take to write? I mean, I'm sure it's different for each one, but like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's always different. It depends on the groove you're in. Like my brother and I, we've written 4 or 5 maybe scripts now. And at first they took a little while, but my brother's really good at just like pounding out pages. So we'll sit and we'll break down the story beats and we'll kind of figure out what's going to happen, and then he can just take that and just like spit something out that may not be right or may not be perfect, but a lot of the stuff that we've wanted to do and a lot of new stuff is introduced there. And then we kind of just spend some time whittling it down and I'll do a pass and then we kind of work on that together. But like when I do it solo, like Superhost was the first time I'd ever written a full script solo, and that one took probably 8 to 10 months or something like that. And not because I was writing for 8 to 10 months. I would write 20 pages, stop, reread that 20 pages, rewrite the 20 pages, and I would always be terrified of taking the next step
Hmm.
because like you get to a point at the end of the first act and you're like, okay, well something needs to happen to kind of push us into the next act and then into the all that stuff. And that can be really tough for me because I'll just get like really focused on like dialing in that first 20 30 pages, and it can be pretty challenging to just like go past it. And that's where my brother's so good because he's just like don't care, bull in a china shop, just like go right through, punch through. And then when you have something like that's when I'm really good is I can be like, okay, we have this thing, this needs to be fixed, this can be fixed, whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely different for every project, but sometimes it can be a matter of weeks, and then sometimes it can be, almost a year.
Let's delve into your latest Night of the Reaper. First off, I just want to tell you, we absolutely loved it. Everyone in my household was blown away by it. I love it
Cool.
set at Halloween. I always loved movies set at Halloween.
hmm
And this really has some old school flavor to me. Like, was that your intention, like when you were writing this?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely wanted to have like to capture this time and place, and I think, when you think of horror movies in the 80s, it's hard not to think of Halloween just because the old decorations, the fall colors, all those things, they're just so iconic to me as someone that grew up in the 80s and 90s, and doing these things. So, we wanted to have it aesthetically there, but we also, having these decorations, these Grim Reaper decorations kind of all over the town, they're kind of harmless on their own, but for these characters, as they see them and they're interacting with them, it becomes kind of like an extra level for the characters. Because like there's a shot at the beginning when Dina's sort of staring at one, and when you're watching, you're just like, oh yeah, she's just looking, whatever. But if you revisit that later, you're just like, oh, I see what's going
It
on.
all makes sense
It's
now.
yeah, it all makes sense now. So having it definitely as like a visual thing to keep reminding the characters and the audience and stuff like that. That was big. And so, but ultimately it was just like I wanted to create a cozy fall movie.
Well, you did a great job. And I have to say, let me ask you, what was the best memory that stands out in your mind from making this film?
Um, man, there was a lot. It was a super fun time. I would say like the first 3 days of the shoot is when we had Summer H. Howell and we were shooting the opening because I was very adamant. I was like, because this is so separate from the rest of the film, it would make a lot of sense if we shot this first. Then we treat it like a little short film, and then we have the weekend to prep for the next week, and then we go into the rest of the movie, and that allows the crew to kind of get their bearings and all that stuff. So we shot that on the first 3 days, and the first day was fine. The second day was challenging because we had some noise complaints because we were shooting the exterior of where she goes out to smoke and sees the dog. And then the third day was pretty much just the music video dancing sequence, like her in the kitchen and the living room, and then a few other little scenes, and then her death. And it was an overnight, so it was like 6 to 6, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And we were just like blasting Pat Benatar and kind of loosely choreographing this sequence, and it was like I came up doing music videos for like small indie bands and stuff like that, so it brought me back to that where you're just like pounding music into the night. You're like everyone's on Red Bull, and you're just like trying to just shoot this thing cool. And I mean, you never have time because you just don't. So you're just sort of like doing the best that you can, but the vibes were super fun. The set was awesome. And yeah, it was just like going, after that I went to McDonald's because it just opened at like 6 a.m. and me and the DP who was staying at my house, we got some bacon and eggers and drove home, and we were just like riding home on this high of just like, oh, that was fun, that was super cool.
How long a shoot was Night of the Reaper?
It was 22 days of principal, and then we had one pickup day with the sheriff's wife thing.
Well, let me ask you, what was the easiest and the hardest part of making this film, would you say?
The easiest part was just, I mean, directing the actors was pretty easy because we had a really strong cast on this one,
Oh yeah.
and they all came ready to go. Like I didn't have to dial in a lot of people, and like Max, of course, because he's my son. I had to work with him quite a bit, but when it was just like Jess in the house or Ryan Robbins doing the things, they just made it very easy. Like Matty Finocchio, the guy that plays Butch. the whole kind of like romantic subplot that unfolds with Dottie at the precinct was totally just improvised by them. They just sort of brought that, and it adds such an extra fun little element to the film that wasn't written anywhere. It's just like he's just like, I think this is gonna be funny. Just let me go with it. And it's like, all right, man, do it. And so it was just like it was just really easy to work with those people and just have them bring these characters to life. The hardest thing. Um, I mean, it's all tough. The overnights are always hard. Like you get actors, they're tired. You gotta. I mean, when you're a director on an indie, a lot of it is just like cheerleading the crew and just being like, hey, rah rah. We got to keep the energy up, spirits up, because they're gonna follow by example. So if like your energy is low, their energy is gonna be low. So they kind of feed off of you and your confidence and sort of your vision. So there's a lot of Red Bull. Like I drink a lot of Red Bull on set, and it just sort of keeps the energy high, and I can be crazy and stupid and just sort of like make the energy levels really high so that everybody's able to work. So that's brutally difficult. I mean, there's like scenes that were tough. I mean, and even ones that aren't even in the film, like they're the cemetery stuff at the very end of the film. Right before that day, the Calgary had like this weird freak blizzard, and there was just a ton of snow everywhere. And I was like, "Shit, we're
Oh
shooting
no.
this cemetery scene that takes place in the summer after the open, the cold open. It doesn't really make sense if there's snow." I was overthinking it, but I basically was just like losing my mind trying to figure out how do we do this. And so I went like 3 or 4 hours before the call time for everybody. And we had these rental backpack blowers, like from Home Depot, and I was just walking the entire cemetery where we were shooting, and I was just blowing the snow out of the way to create this like kind of opening. And yeah, it worked. I mean, it looked fine, but like most of the shots that we got that day were cut from the film. So I
Uh,
was like, damn it, all that work for nothing.
what's the biggest challenges of being a visual effects artist?
It used to be just like adapting to solve a shot in post-production, like I do a lot of work for other people too, and a lot of the time they're just like, "Hey, we need to do this," and they didn't really think about how to execute it and how the elements would come together. And so I've gotten a lot better now when I'm doing my own thing to prepare properly and shoot things properly. Like the head explosion, for example. I knew exactly how I was going to shoot that. Like there's several shots in the sequence. There's the explosion itself, and then there's like the shot of him falling past the table, and I called that the Lieutenant Dan shot because when they did Forrest Gump, like they would cut out, they would do all these things for his legs to make it look like, they weren't there. So there'd be a coffee table, and his legs would move past it, and he would scoot by. But it was like a composite of two different things, so there'd be no table for him to do that with his legs. But then
Hmm.
they'd put the table back in. So for that one, like I had him fall with no table, then I put the table in, and then when I comp them together, it feels like, oh, there's no head because his shoulder passes right by it. And so I just like, I was just proud of, I had a plan of how to shoot it and to shoot all the elements so that I could composite them really easily together, and it worked really well. So, yeah, it was something that I learned on the Puppet Man when I did the fire in the library scene. Like that, I was super worried about going into it, but the way I shot it, um, each element was just like perfectly able to go together super quickly, which was, a huge learning thing for me.
What's a horror film that if you had the opportunity that you'd love to update?
I mean, I'd love to do it as a real scary, dark thing. I think in chapter two it has that opening with like the gay bashing by the bridge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying, but it's so dark and crappy and terrible and mean, and that's what it was to me when I read the book and everything. And I just felt like that meanness was gone from the movies, especially chapter two, where it's just like you've got this great sequence with Beverly talking to the old woman, and then she's doing like creepy stuff naked running around in the background, and then all of a sudden she just like bursts out and she's like a googly monster, and it's like, oh, like it's not scary anymore, it's just a goosebumps level thing. And so the book was so scary that it's a bummer that the movie kind of didn't go for that, and it's just like because the casting was great, the directing was great, the score was great, Pennywise incredible. It just wasn't scary. And so I would love to do a
It's got
very
a meaner
dark
edge
and
to it.
totally. I'm curious how Welcome to Derry is going to be. The trailer looks cool.
That got
Um,
me. I seen it the other day, and I'm like, wow, this looks way better than I
yeah,
thought it would be for a TV
totally.
series.
Yeah, feels like a movie, like another one in it. So I'm curious what they'll do with it. Because I mean, even just hearing the names, like what is it? The guy from The Shining, what's his name? The in the keep frick,
Oh,
the
I know you.
janitor guy,
Yeah.
Dick Halloran. Oh, I can't think of his
Oh,
name.
yeah. I think it's Halloran. I don't.
Yeah, but I heard his name in there, so I'm like, oh, cool. Like they're tying all these, Stephen King universe
Yeah, I
characters, or at
seen the
least their
bus said
names.
Shawshank. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, for
I like
sure.
all those different nods to like the whole universe. Like, who knows? Maybe
Totally.
the series will kind of get that darker edge to it. They
That's what
get
I'm
me every
hoping.
time. I mean, they pretty much just like here's I'm like here's my money. You can have it. So,
Right.
I mean,
For sure.
what's one thing that fans would be surprised to know about you?
Um, I don't know. I'm just, I make horror movies and I make movies and stuff, but I'm just like a dad, I've got three kids and I coach baseball 5 days a week right now. My I'm not like I've got friends that are just like filmmakers. That's all they do. They go to festivals, they travel, they do all this stuff. But I'm kind of just like in my basement, just like toying, tinkering on my computer and making movies, like it's a pretty interesting thing that I don't think you could have done like 15, 20 years ago, but we shoot the film and then I basically just take it and work on it for a long time and I color and I do the VFX and I do all that stuff. And so it is a very like personal process for me because what you're seeing is like a lot of my work, and so I can't be like, oh, we didn't have the budget for VFX because I was the VFX, I'm nothing, I cost nothing because it's just my time. And so I think it's a unique skill set that I have and I bring to films, and it allows me to make movies for super cheap because my time is basically free. I don't have to pay myself if I don't have to. That's like an easy expense. So like directing, editing, VFX, like those are huge costs on a normal film. But when I'm doing it myself, I can be like, I don't have any money to pay myself for this, so I'll just I just won't, and I'll just do the work anyways. And it just keeps everything costs and everything down because it's just me in my basement just doing it. So
So
it's kind of fun.
you have the true independent spirit, and I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. Let me ask you, what do you do for fun, like when you're not making movies and you're not, having a family life? Is there something that you just specifically like to do for yourself?
Um, I like to play video games a little bit. It's weird because like I like to buy them and I like to follow the industry because I grew up like reading video game magazines and stuff like
Saying
that,
Nintendo
and
Power, all that stuff.
yeah, EGM and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that, and
Electronic Gaming Monthly. Oh, your Game
yeah.
Pro.
So yeah, so good. And so like I don't play them as much as I used to. My kids do, but I still like following it. And then I like the idea of playing them. Like right now, I'm actually playing one for the first time in forever, and it's a Silk Song, which is like Hollow Knight,
Oh, I haven't
brutally
played that.
hard. It's so good, but yeah, it's brutal. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the kids take up so much of my life that like nine all day is kids stuff. Even when they're at school, like okay, we got to go shopping for clothes. We got to do all this stuff for the kids. So it is very like family facing right now, which is cool because who knows how long that'll last for. Like when they grow up and they we're empty nesters or whatever. But yeah, I mean. I don't know. I think my life is fairly boring outside of just making movies. Like making movies is my summer camp, Like I get to do it maybe once a year and I get to leave for a bit and I spend, 8 weeks or something like that just working on this thing. And that is what I love to do. Like and I shoot shorts with my kids sometimes like I just like to create. We go to on family vacations. I make a big video with it and like put it all together because I like capturing stuff and I like just like shaping memories and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't like my hobbies are like just making stuff. Like when I'm not making my own, I'm working on other people's stuff. Like I'm doing VFX for them or whatever. So it's movies are definitely a huge part of my life and my family as well.
Has any of your kids decided they'd like to kind of be a filmmaker too yet?
Um, no, I mean Max is in Reaper. He's the kid. He's Max. Like that's my middle son. And he's acting now and he booked a play that's downtown, like it's fully paid. That he starts in November, and he
Hmm,
did the same play last year. So he's like got a little career, like he's making like legitimate money,
nice.
which which is really bizarre. But
Good
yeah,
acting.
he's doing good. I don't know what he wants to do, if he wants to stick with stage or with movies, but no, he's just talented. He's just got like that it factor, which is really cool. And then my older son, he'd be more like behind the scenes kind of guy. And we just took them to Night of the Reaper. It played here in Calgary
Nice.
last week, and it was the first time my kids had like watched a horror movie.
Oh,
They've watched like Five Nights at Freddy's and like little things, but this was more like a real horror movie, and they're in a theater, and we did the whole thing,
how'd that
and
go?
it went really well. Like they were really into it. They were kind of buzzing from it, and
Hmm.
I'm curious because we want to, as October approaches, I want to get them into more and like show them some classics and try to keep it pretty light. But yeah, I think now that they've done this, they've kind of gone like, oh, this would be cool. And my oldest son, he's gonna have some friends over for Halloween this year. And I'm trying to get them to watch something like Superhost or something like that
Oh,
after they're done
cool.
trick or treating. So that would be cool.
Well, in the same vein here, I wanted to ask you, have you personally ever had a paranormal experience?
No, I haven't, but like I remember growing up, my brother would have sleep paralysis, so he would have like those visions at night and stuff like that, and he'd be pretty shaken by that. And my sister, she claims she saw like a ghost at the foot of her bed one time, and so we all, when you grow up, you hear these things, and you're just like, okay, so the house is clearly haunted, like something happened, and you're like building this lore and mythology for your own house, which is total BS. But as a kid, you don't know that. Like, it just is the truth because you're dumb and you're young. And so like, you start coming up with these stupid things that aren't backed up by zero facts or science or anything like that, and you just kind of live with that in you. But fortunately, I haven't had anything like an actual personal experience with it.
What's the best gift anyone's given you?
Oh, snap. That's a tough question. For one, I hate gifts. I hate getting things because it just makes me feel. It's like when you give someone a compliment. I just saw this reel on Instagram. It was like this guy talking to the camera, and he's like, "I'm a child of the '90s, and so I don't like nice things. I don't like being complimented. If you want to compliment me, just like make fun of me or say something shitty because
Yep.
that's how we did it back then, right?" And so I
Same.
think
Yep.
yeah, I grew up just sort of like that was how you did it. You just called each other bad names and it didn't matter because the internet didn't exist. It just everyone was shitty to each other, but it was in a nice way. Um, but oh God, I know there's going to be some gifts that I've received that are just like super thoughtful. My wife is incredibly thoughtful, so she'll put a lot of thoughts into it. I don't typically want gifts, like we just had our 17th anniversary, didn't get
Oh,
anything.
nice.
Like
Congrats.
it, thanks. And it's just like shit. I don't. This is a terrible, terrible answer. Okay. I can go back in time, and when I was a kid, and this is a video game thing. The game Donkey Kong Country came out in like
Oh my gosh, I
1994 or
love
something.
that's I'm a retro gamer and I love all that old
Cool.
stuff. Oh, that's a
Great.
classic.
Yeah, great game, but it was like super hyped and all that stuff. And I wanted it for Christmas, and my mom was like, I can't, she told me it's sold out everywhere. You can't get it anywhere. And so going into that Christmas morning, I didn't think it was going to happen. And I even had this like little monkey toy that I put a red shirt on to be like Diddy Kong
Diddy
because I was
Kong.
I was like 9 or something like that.
That's awesome.
And Christmas morning rolls around and there it was, and she got it for me. And I just remember, talking to her about it, and she said that she had to call my aunt in Seattle, and she had to find it at like, a toy store there, and she had to ship it to me, and like, back in 1994, like that wasn't easy. You're making long distance phone calls, you're doing all this stuff, and so to get something like that was pretty magical because you going into it, I didn't think it was possible. And so that's definitely one that sticks out. I wish I had something more recent. And I'm sure I've been spoiled with things that I'm gonna regret when we say bye, and I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I got that thing, and it's gonna be a nightmare. But for now, I'll just stick with that one because it's
That's a
cuter.
pretty good one, man. I have fond memories of Donkey Kong Country.
Hmm.
I have an emulator that has like thousands of those old games. I play that all the time. What's
Cool.
the best excuse someone's ever given you for being late for something?
Oh, man, you're killing me with these. I mean, I can't think of anything specific, but I do think tardiness is a serious problem because and it's like it's easier than ever to communicate, you know? So it's like if you're going to be late and you're just going to show up late. And I grew up with people that were just always late or else they would just not show. Like it would just be a situation where it's like, "Hey, let's meet at the movie theater at 6 p.m." because you couldn't text, you couldn't do that. So that you would just hope to God that that plan was firm and you would show up on the day and it would be there. And like there was always friends that you'd have that were just they would just wouldn't show. And like the next, they wouldn't think of it, they wouldn't care. You see them the next time, they act like it never happened, but like your entire day was totally
Oh yeah,
thrown off.
I have a few of those now even.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it's so easy to just update. If you're gonna be late, like shoot a text 5 minutes before, like, "Hey, I'm on my way. I'm in the car, but Google says I'm gonna be there in 20, and it's 5 minutes till the event, so just I'm coming." Super easy. Yeah, there's just I definitely hate being late without being told, why and even when I'm gonna do it because like sometimes you're gonna be late. Just be honest. Like I'm a terrible liar, so
So am I.
if I had to be like, oh my dog jumped into the
Yeah, people
and
are gonna know you're full of shit. That's why I don't even bother
totally.
lying to people because I'm so transparent. They're like, get the fuck out of
Yeah, for sure. But I was doing a commercial back in Las Vegas when I lived there, and it was like I made my career start like by doing really low budget commercials that looked a lot better than their budgets. Like I would have very little money, I wouldn't make a lot, but I would be doing them with a super small crew and just sort of like making something cool out of nothing. And I was doing this one commercial, and we needed to shoot it in a hotel room on the strip, and they don't like that. And so like I went to this, it was a fancy hotel. I've got my little push cart, and me and my friend are together because we're going to do this just the two of us. And I've got all this gear and lights and stuff like that. And I get in the elevator, and there's a manager on the elevator. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, we're shooting a corporate event over at the Wynn, and this is where we're staying. This is where they put us, and we just didn't want to leave our stuff in the car. And I'm just like, the longer you talk and lie, the worse it gets for you, and especially for me, because like you're just telling information that if it was the truth, you would never tell. You just be like, oh yeah, I would just take it up to my room, whatever. But it was just, I just remember being like, holy shit, I am really deep on this lie right now, and I sound like a total moron.
it.
And so we get to the room, we're like setting up, and it was like a suite, and all of a sudden there's like a knock on the door, and it's like, hey, I'm with the engineering team. We heard that there was a light in this room that was out, and they were 100% just checking on us, and it was just like. I'm like, I totally screwed that up, but it was fine. We got the commercial and stuff, but it was just like, I can't imagine the types of people that film in Las Vegas hotels. So I'm not surprised they were a little cautious.
What's something people generally love but you absolutely can't stand?
Hmm. What do people love that I can't stand? I mean,
Crocs?
yeah, what was that?
Crocs?
Crocs. I don't know if anybody truly loves them. I think like I just learned that they have like sport mode with that little back thing. So
Oh,
if it's forward and you just put it in like a slide, it's normal. But there's the sport mode where that thing like holds your heel in, and I just learned about that. It's
yeah.
crazy.
I don't even. I just learned about that 3 seconds ago.
Yeah. Uh, I'm just the one thing I'm always wary about is shitting on anything because like if we're talking about movies, shitting on something is that someone spent a lot of time and working on. It's kind of hard. Uh, I mean, if it's food, I don't like seafood. Is that good?
There
I
you
hate
go.
seafood.
Perfect.
I like crab, and
Oh,
lobster is good. But
oh man.
yeah, I mean, give me a salmon and I can't. I just can't do it.
Before we close, can you offer my audience any wisdom if they'd like to become a director, writer, or visual effects artist?
Yeah, I think, right now there's no shortage of cameras in your pocket. Like everyone's got an iPhone or an Android or something. the quality, exactly. The quality of that camera is so much higher than anything I had in film school and
Really?
everything. Like, yeah, it was all just like, digital like cameras that looked like shit. They were all, standard definition. Those camera, I mean, Steven Soderbergh shoots all of his movies on iPhones now because you can add lenses, you can kit it up. I feel Apple's probably paying him to do it, but he's doing it and he's making movies with huge stars and stuff like that. The point being, like, the technology has gotten to a point where it's everywhere. You can do whatever you want. So the only thing stopping you from making films is yourself. And so I think you just need to like really just find it inside of yourself to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could just be you talking to the camera or shooting a scene with yourself. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of people that they write like these 20-page World War II short films and they're like, this is my short film that I want to do first. And it's just like, you're insane. Don't do that. That's so expensive and so hard. I wouldn't even do that. Like, it's like, don't do that. Just remove all barriers for the story. Use what you have. Just do it because ultimately it's going to be bad. The first thing you do is you're not going to know what you're doing, and that's totally normal. And everybody's going to go through that. So just like get your growing pains out cheaply and just quickly because every time you do something, you're going to get better because you're going to practice. You're going to be like, oh, I did that one angle there that didn't really cut with that other angle. What I should have done was, and then you bring that to the next one, and then you bring that to the next one, and eventually you'll make something kind of good. And then you'll be like, oh shit, okay, here we go. And I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to do that. And then eventually you're going to make something great. And you're going to be like, you're going to see every step of the process. But so many people get hung up on that first one and they put so much pressure on it when it's never going to be good. It just won't. And it's just the nature of it. It's like if I handed you paintbrushes and I was like, hey, paint me a Mona Lisa, would you do it? You could try, it'd be shitty. But that's what filmmakers are trying. They're trying to make the best thing first. And that's not good. It'll never work.
And before we go, I just wanted to ask you, what does the future look like for you? What can we look forward to, and how can we keep up with all your projects? And what do you have going on soon? Hmm.
I've got another film that's coming out early next year. It's called Body Cam. It's a found footage film about two cops going to a domestic dispute, and there's an accidental shooting, and they're trying to cover it up.
Ooh.
So the whole thing's done on body cams, which is really cool. So it's
Hmm.
just like, the gimmick is really cool, and it's a super dark and twisted thing where just it's a total nightmare roller coaster ride. But it's starting kind of to play through festivals, and I'm going to Boston next week, and then I'm going to Colorado right after. And so hopefully it'll get some solid play this fall.
Hmm.
But that's kind of the main thing. Reaper just came out, and so I'm just kind of enjoying that and doing all the interviews and doing all the just chatting about it and just sort of being in it. But yeah, Body Cam will be out next year, and then I'm just writing some other things. I'm trying to hopefully shoot something next year so I can just keep the ball rolling because when you're an indie, you can't no one's giving you work. You kind of have to self-generate. So we've got one script that we're trying to get financing on, and then we've got another one that's quite a bit bigger that we're trying to write and get that done and see if we can find some money for that one. But I'll probably end up writing something super small again, just that I can, if none of those bigger ones go, I can just be like, no, screw it, I'm gonna go do this. So that is the current plan, and just we'll see what happens.
Well, that's awesome. And everybody, you go out, you make sure you check out Brandon Christensen's work. I'm a fan, as you know. If you don't check out his movies, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Check out Night of the Reaper that's streaming now on Shudder. We'll be looking forward to your future work. And I just want to say, man, thank you again so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Thanks, guys.